What do you make of the India-US relationship right now as it stands?
I don't think the relationship is fundamentally broken, but the idea that the US is going to become India's reliable, trusted, great power partner, that clearly is not in the card.
Is this about trade or is this personality politics?
Well, I think it's about Pakistan too.
Right.
I mean, the US suddenly is working more closely with Pakistan. He got into Putin's limousine, just like Putin got into Trump's limousine, and made it very clear, as Trump was saying, I'm going to increase tariffs on you because you're buying all this oil. Modi's saying, I'm going to do whatever I want with Putin, and I'm not going to listen to you. That was a very direct message.
From my conversation with you, it seems that there's a dramatic realignment happening over here.
If the Americans aren't even interested in a strong Europe, it's hard to imagine they're going to be very interested in a strong India.
This continuing love story of American presidents and Pakistani military officials.
There is a kind of a lack of ethics, a kleptocratic and oligarchic impulse with the family and a constellation of people that are around the administration, trusted by, liked, who are conducting a lot of business with Pakistan, and that has brought them in. And I don't think it's a particular strategic shift. I think it's opportunistic and it's about some money.
Saudi-Pakistan Mutual Defense Pact that's happened. A day before that, the CENTCOM chief met the Saudi defense minister. Don't you think that the US had blessed this union again?
They certainly knew about it. I mean, we knew about it before it was announced.
We knew as in?
I knew about it.
Well, Mr. Bremmer, thank you for talking to us. You are the founder and president of the Eurasia Group, and this is a political risk research and consulting firm that advises businesses and governments on political developments and how they affect the global markets. I hope I got it all right.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, great. So let's just get to it. What do you make of the India-US relationship right now as it stands?
It's obviously facing some significant headwinds compared to 3 months ago, compared to the first Trump administration. I think there's less trust. I think that there is a sense in India that the US is less reliable than it used to be. Part of that is the Pakistan relationship with the United States, both officially as well as unofficially, and the business connections. Part of it is Trump's recklessness in diplomacy, his desire for credit, and his indifference to how that may affect others that he's working with. Part of it is trade, and not only the reality of the trade negotiations, which have been confrontational, but also whether or not the United States can be trusted to follow through on an agreement in a phone call. We've heard from Vietnam, and Modi's had those conversations directly, other countries in the region, that what they thought they agreed to, the terms then change when Trump announces it. And that's a problem too. It's not, I don't think the relationship is fundamentally broken. I think that the Quad is going to continue. It will persist. The security alignment with the United States, the intelligence sharing, the desire of American companies to hedge more into India as opposed to China. I think all of that is continuing. But the idea that the US is going to become India's reliable, trusted, great power partner, that clearly is not in the cards, right?
Right. So we saw a sort of off-ramp that happened with the Twitter and the Truth Social sort of exchanges between President Trump and PM Modi. Is this more a smokescreen, or how real do you think this is then? Is there an off-ramp that's happened?
I think both leaders were looking for a way to bring down the temperature, sure. And I think the exchange of public goodwill for Modi's birthday and a quick phone call and the readout was pretty positive. All of that yes, it's performative, but it reflects a real intention. And I think that there's a pretty good chance that we get a trade agreement of some form by the end of the year. But that trade agreement will exist in the context of a more mercantile, industrial policy oriented, less free trade supportive United States.
Mm.
I mean, the US has had almost no tariffs globally for decades, and now you're going to see the US with a blended global tariff rate of 13 to 15%. It's the highest we've had since the 1930s. If you're India, and I mean, India's rise has been on the back of global markets, right? Integration in a global economy. Well, the world's largest economy is telling you that they're not really supportive of that anymore. So obviously, that's going to have a chilling effect on the overall trajectory of the relationship.
The September 18th evening over here in India, and just a few hours ago, President Trump just revoked the Chabahar sanction waiver that President Trump's first term, he gave it to India. It was a carve out, special carve out for us to run the port in Iran. Now, you see, it seems that there is one step forward. It seems like there are two steps backward. This just happened.
Yep.
So what do you make of that?
Just like with US China, there's a phone call happening at the end of this week between Trump and Xi Jinping. There's lots of talk about figuring out a way to actually get to a deal. And yet the Chinese are saying the NVIDIA chips are going to be banned for now, and the Americans are putting more export controls. And all of this is like the theatrics before the two men talk to decide on a deal. And I think that at a lower level of conflict, at a lower level of tension, that's what we see playing out between the US and India right now. You're right to ask about it.
Is this about trade or is this personality politics? You started off talking about it's a mixed bag of everything. What do you give more weight to?
Well, I think it's about Pakistan too.
Right.
I mean, the US suddenly is working more closely with Pakistan.
Yes.
And by the way, Saudi Arabia just announced a security alliance with Pakistan. Now, if you're India, next time you get into a fight with Pakistan, before you engage in drone strikes or bombing, you got to think about, oh, is Saudi Arabia going to defend them? And what does that mean for us, right? So, I mean, your life is getting more complicated because of all of these moving parts, which are being driven by the political revolution of Donald Trump. So, you know, of course, the fact his personality and his unwillingness to exist by the rules that other people have set. His own predecessors, American presidents, his own Supreme Court, his legislature, but also other countries around the world. He is singularly unwilling to live by those precedents. Doesn't care. His view is, I'm powerful, I'm the president, you got to listen to me. And if you don't, you're going to lose your job, you're going to lose your agreement, you're going to lose your security, all of those things. There will be consequences. Now, what we have, so of course, the person is driving a lot of this. But we've also seen that there are countries that can stand up to Trump and say, no, the Chinese have stood up to Trump. And effectively, in my view, the Russians have stood up to Trump. So far, I'm not sure it was a good idea for them to stand up to Trump, because I don't think the Russians are gaining much, but they have stood up effectively. There have been no consequences to the Russians for telling Trump no. And I think Modi is in that space, right? Because Modi could have easily not embarrassed Trump about the India-Pakistan issue. And instead, Modi decided to publicly say, no, you had nothing to do with this. And really did embarrass Trump on the global stage. And most other leaders in the world would have sucked it up and not said anything.
There was a call that happened after the G7 visit that happened. There was a call that happened between Prime Minister Modi and President Trump. And what we've heard from the Indian side is categorically that they denied any sort of sort of declaration by the White House that they played a role in the India-Pakistan
Right. They
mediation.
did deny it. The Indians denied it. The Pakistanis said that the US played a significant role. I've
Right.
spoken with many in the Trump administration, and it's very clear that the truth is in the middle, that
Okay.
there was a role played by Vance and by Rubio and by some senior State Department staffers who pulled all-nighters on this, and that they had influence. They were
Mm.
constructive. I wouldn't say they were definitive.
Right.
And so, but my point is not that. My point is that you could say they were really important. You could say they were a little important. Modi decided personally that he was going to make this public and he was going to embarrass the U.S. president, even though the U.S. president is much more powerful than Modi is.
Mm.
And most other leaders in that position have
Mm.
chosen to remain silent. They've
Right.
sucked it up. Some of them have even proactively talked about how amazing Trump is, how wonderful Trump is. I mean, look at Keir Starmer, who certainly doesn't like what Trump stands for, but loves the fact that he got a better deal from Trump than other countries have. He's in a very weak position. So, I mean, Trump is, sort of the God's grace from the
Yeah.
UK perspective. Modi is really on the opposite side of that. And
Yeah.
that certainly has helped Modi in terms of domestic politics.
Right.
We will see if there are broader consequences on the security and the economic relationship. It's an interesting question.
Then when PM Modi did go to Tianjin and he met Putin and he met Xi Jinping and sort of when they were interacting at the
Right,
SCO, he didn't go to
right,
Beijing for V-Day parade. How do
right.
you think that worked out with Trump over there? Because the post about Modi, the call with Modi happened post that meeting over there. So how do you see that?
Yeah. Look, Modi did not sign on to, and all the other SCO countries did, support for Belt and Road. He didn't, as you say, go on to Beijing for the World War II commemoration and the military parade.
Right.
Nobody that understands geopolitics thinks that this somehow heralds a new trusted India-China entente. That is not in the cards at all. What Modi did do, and I think it's meaningful, is
Hmm.
he got into Putin's limousine, just like Putin got into Trump's limousine in Anchorage a week or so before, and made it very clear as Trump was saying, I'm going to increase tariffs on you because you're buying all this oil. Modi saying, I'm going to do whatever I want with Putin, and I'm not going to listen to you. That was a very direct message.
Right.
And I think appropriately so from Modi's perspective. I think that was it was noticed, but it did not lead to negative consequences. In fact, it probably made Trump pay more attention to the
Hmm.
need to engage with Modi in a friendlier way.
Does the
So
White
on
House realize?
balance, I would say
Yeah.
that worked. I would say that worked.
Does the White House realize the sort of the hypocrisy over here? Because it was the Biden administration that basically told India to mop up Russian oil to stabilize oil prices, and now you have a full 180 over here. So
Well, when you say, but just so I understand, when you say
yes,
hypocrisy,
yes.
explain what you mean, because there's so much hypocrisy on the global stage. I'm not even sure which one you're talking about. I
Well,
mean,
when the war started, basically the Biden administration said that India should purchase Russian oils to stabilize global oil prices,
right.
and that
But oil
same
prices are low. Oil
now
prices
they
are
are.
lower now.
They've remained low
Right.
because of steady imports of Russian oil, and that same
Number one.
imports happen with China, happen with Turkey as well.
I
So
know, but I just want to, we can't, again, there's plenty of, let me explain this, okay?
yes,
First of all, if I were going to make the hypocrisy argument, I
right,
wouldn't talk about oil. I would talk about the Americans buying Russian uranium,
correct,
billions of
correct,
Russian uranium and fertilizer. So
right,
at the same time, the Americans are telling you don't buy oil, the Americans are buying Russian product, and they're not suggesting that they're going to stop. So that's the hypocrisy. The oil situation was a trade-off, right? The United States was concerned that at the beginning of the war, the Europeans desperately needed, right, energy. They were cutting off the Russians. They were concerned that you would knock the world into a global recession, and there was very little time to actually engage in alternatives to what the Russians were. And now we're in an environment where Chinese demand is low. It's not growing very much. OPEC is producing and putting more out. The Americans are producing more. So
Right.
there's less concern about taking some of the Russian oil off of the market. And in that regard, there's more willingness on the part of Trump to squeeze. Plus, Trump's already tried the carrot with Putin, and he wanted to try the carrot. He engaged, he said, I'll get rid of the sanctions. We'll unfreeze the assets if you do a ceasefire. And it's been 6 months, and Putin said no. So
Okay.
now he's looking for where the leverage might come from. So I think that on the oil front, you can see how the situation has changed. On the willingness to do business with Russia front, the Americans clearly have hypocrisy.
So squeeze India, I understand, but
Yeah.
not squeeze China then?
Well, Trump has talked about China as well on the oil front. He has on several occasions said that both the Indians and the Chinese are buying a lot. Now, China's more powerful than India. China has shown that they are capable of hitting back the Americans in ways that really hurt, not just on tariffs, which were an effective boycott, mutual boycott, but also on critical minerals. And so Trump now is really very focused on trying to get to a better place with the Chinese. So as a consequence, he's less likely to use that leverage against China. I'm not even convinced that the leverage against India amounts to all that much. I mean, telling the Europeans that they need to hit these economies, he's doing just because he wants to blame Europe because he knows Europe isn't going to do it. So that struck me as performative because Trump doesn't want to be responsible for failing with the Russians. It can't be his fault, so he wants to blame Europe. That's what I see there.
Over here in New Delhi, you can imagine the shock over here because we've been told for decades about the ascending sort of U.S.-India relationship and how the U.S. considered us as a counterweight to China over here. From my conversation with you, it seems that there's a dramatic realignment happening over here.
The Quad still exists. The Americans are still committed to their troops on the ground in Japan, in South Korea. There is a very significant amount of American military capability with exercises, training, intelligence sharing around the South China Sea. I don't think that's going to suddenly go away over the course of the Trump administration. There is a hemispheric tilt. There is more focus on U.S. border security, a lot more money for ICE, which is the Immigration and Customs Enforcement. There's, of course, this Venezuela issue, which has a lot to do with drug interdiction now that the Mexico border has been secured. But I do accept that the broader idea that India is a long-term strategic counterweight to China for the United States. This is an administration that doesn't think very much about long-term strategic counterweights. I mean, they don't even really want a strong Europe, which is the principal counterweight to everything. Their view is, this is really, we'd be better off with a weak Europe because we can get better deals with individual weak European countries than we can with an EU that is coherent and holds together as a common market. So, I mean, if the Americans aren't even interested in a strong Europe, it's hard to imagine they're going to be very interested in a strong India. And that I think it's more unilateralist
Yes.
in orientation. And I think, the interesting thing is I speak with leaders around the world. and mostly leaders or friends of the United States, but some adversaries too. What they're finding is that the Americans are not just unpredictable, but they're unreliable. And unpredictability, is it makes you, make sure that you have resilience because, you want to take a bus, it might be late. Unreliability means you can't take the bus. Bus
Right.
might not get there. And that I think is a much harder thing for American friends and partners and allies to swallow.
And how would you advise New Delhi about this new unreliability when we have India-US defense deals in the pipeline?
It's longer term hedging. I mean, the Brazilians are seeing this to a much more urgent degree, even though they run a trade deficit with the United States, because Supreme Court has taken action against Bolsonaro that Trump doesn't like. And so now they're getting hit, and the consequences are much more damaging than they
Hmm.
are economically for India on the back of this fallout. So what's Brazil doing? They are trying to build stronger trade relations with everyone, with EFTA, with the EU, with ASEAN, with India, with Mexico, with Canada. And I would say, look at what Lula's doing
Hmm.
and apply that to India over the longer term, right? I mean, that is the principal decision that occurs. It's greater resilience, it's it's larger investments in existing institutions and more leadership because it's easier to maintain institutions than build new ones, and it's
Hmm.
hedging with stronger relations with other countries, and of course it's stabilizing China. I think it was Modi's to be congratulated for
Hmm.
his efforts to reach out to Xi Jinping, not to build a friendship, not to build an alliance, but to stabilize the relationship, which is good not just for India and China, but frankly, it's good for the world.
Hmm.
I mean, we don't want World War III.
Okay.
And if the Americans are not going to be leaders in 2025, it's incumbent on other countries around the world to do more to stabilize the global environment. And I do think that India has been playing a commendable role in trying to be a part of that.
Okay. And explain this continuing love story of American presidents and Pakistani military officials.
This is mostly about business. Jake Sullivan recently wrote a lot about this. I wish that weren't true, but there is a kind of a lack of ethics, a kleptocratic and oligarchic impulse with the family, and a constellation of people that are around the administration, trusted by, liked, who are conducting a lot of business with Pakistan, and that has brought them in. And I
Hmm.
don't think it's a particular strategic shift. I think it's opportunistic and it's about some money. I wish that weren't the case. That's not the way the U.S. is supposed to run.
Hmm.
But I mean, anyone that's been watching the reporting around this can't ignore that reality.
Wow. It seems like the lines have been blurred where American diplomacy ends and President Trump's family interests take over. But is it more than that? Because this Saudi-Pakistan Mutual Defense Pact that's happened,
Yeah,
just a day before that, the CENTCOM chief
yeah.
met the Saudi defense minister. Don't you think that the US had sort of blessed this union again?
They certainly knew about it. They
Right.
certainly knew about it. I mean, we knew about it before it was announced. So, I mean, the Saudis were not. I mean, it wasn't in the media, but they weren't. They weren't keeping it completely hush hush.
We knew as in,
Um,
sorry, just
What?
to clarify.
I knew about it.
Oh, you
I
knew.
knew about it before. I knew about it like the day before it was announced. So yes, I'm not. I don't think they were trying to be particularly secret about it. But I think that this is one that the United States may not have been completely. I don't think the U.S. would have suggested it, but I don't think they had strong. I mean, it's clearly meant as a hedge to diversify Saudi Arabia's security commitments and support, including on the nuclear side, right? I mean, because they've long funded a Pakistani plutonium program that everyone hush hush said if the Saudis needed it, that's their emergency nuclear program, right? So, I mean, now this is becoming a more publicly and more real thing. But it's pretty clear to me that the Trump administration does not have a principal problem with this announcement.
And why do you think that's happened? Because see, there's a theory over here that where Prime Minister Netanyahu strikes with Qatar may have, brought those anxieties to the fore in Saudi
That's
Arabia.
right.
Yeah,
I think that's right.
Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a part of it. Because I mean, the Qataris were hosting Hamas with the full blessing of the United States to try to help get to a ceasefire. And, Qatar hosts the largest U.S. base on their territory, military base in the region. And the Qataris only found out from the United States about these bombs as the missiles were striking. So, I mean, this is completely unacceptable behavior on the part of a U.S. ally. The United States did nothing to stop Israel from making those strikes, and nor did they do anything to punish the Israelis on the back of those strikes. So if you're Saudi, and the Qataris, I mean, they lost a citizen that was killed
Right. Yes.
in those strikes. So,
Yeah.
I mean, the Saudis are very angry about this, and I think that the Pakistan agreement is a consequence of that. I do.
Don't you think the Saudis have sort of really irked New Delhi over here when they do? Because the Saudi-India
Probably.
relationship was on the up and up again. This is another one of those things. But I guess this is a sovereign issue, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you advise all these huge companies and all. What would you tell them about investing in India? Would you consider this a dead economy, as President Trump posted on Truth Social?
But then he posted like a couple days later that it was an amazing economy. So I don't know. I mean, between dead and amazing, maybe it's reincarnated. Maybe he's got to be aligned with Indian cultural sensibilities there. It's all performative, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Trump changes what he says about you on a dime, depending on sort of how he feels in the moment. It has nothing to do with the Indian economy, and there's a lot of reasons why. India has been growing quite a bit. It has strong leadership. It's had a lot of structural reform internally. The cost base is still quite low. Infrastructure is still challenging, but it's better than it used to be. Corruption is still challenging, but it's better than it used to be. And you've got an awful lot of human capital. The talent base is unquestioned. And if the United States isn't going to attract those people to its universities, a lot of them are going to stay in India. So this all strikes me as a pretty good story for the Indian economy.
Two things now. I'm wrapping up over here. So
Yeah.
the India-US trade deal and the Russian-Ukraine war, how interlinked are both of them? Can they both survive on their own? When I
The
say
Russia-
Russian-Ukraine war, I also mean about the tariffs, right? It was imposed on India because of our import of Russian energy. That's why. Does one have to end for the other to happen?
No, I think an India trade deal can be a broad India trade deal that can occur with the United States, and you're still going to be buying Russian oil. It's just one more thing that they've been talking about. Again, the fact that there is a negotiation that is in place, that the leaders are talking to each other. Trump wants to be seen as having successful deals, and when one is inked, he'll be happy. So, the question is, what do you have to give up to get there? Some countries have given up a lot. The Europeans, got to a deal pretty quickly, but there's a lot of recrimination that they were too weak and they gave up too much. The South Koreans, same thing, right? So, I mean, it's not just about getting to yes, though that's important. It's also about the process and how asymmetric the outcome is perceived. There's clearly an opportunity here for India to get this over and done with in the coming months.
A few hours ago, President Trump was with Keir Starmer, and he said that he felt let down by President Putin, right? He thought this would be the easiest war to end. And around that, you've been hearing about secondary sanctions, the threat of phase 2 of this. Do you think that President Trump will hit China with sanctions now, or
I doubt it.
other countries?
Doubt it. I
Where
doubt
does
it.
it end?
I think that the Americans at this point are in deal-making mode with the Chinese, and they want to get to yes. That's very clear. That's why we have this phone call coming up with Xi Jinping. It's why they're working on a summit meeting. There will clearly be a rocky path to get there, but that is what they're both focused on.
Okay. All right, Mr. Bremmer, thank you for your time.
Good talking to you. Thanks,
Excellent.
man. Be good.
Thanks.
Good.
Thank you.